What's up, guys? Welcome to the new episode. In today's episode, I'm going to show you guys a freaking crazy AI podcast that I found out through TikTok using Google Notes LM. Today's podcast we're going to hear about is Craig Jones and how he applies the triangle choke. And I didn't know what to expect. Is it going to be cool? Is it going to sound weird? Is it going to be creepy? I had no idea. So I'm going to let it ride. It's like 14 minutes long. And if you guys want to listen to it, here it is. Enjoy. Peace.
Right. So today we're going to be grappling with a topic that has the entire BJJ world kind of buzzing, right? Craig Jones and his, mastery of the triangle choke. We're going to try to get inside his game, see what makes his approach so effective.
Yeah, with Jones, it's more than just technique. I always say it's like he's playing chess while everyone else is figuring out checkers.
That's a great way to put it. So before we get into the nitty gritty, let's make sure we're all kind of on the same page. For someone who's maybe never encountered this mythical triangle choke, what is it? What are we talking about here, and why is it so feared in the world of BJJ?
Imagine this, right? You're facing your opponent, and suddenly their legs are wrapped around your head and one arm, creating this inescapable triangle shape.
Right.
And they squeeze, and it's not just about muscle, it's not a bear hug, right? They're cutting off blood flow through your carotid arteries. And without that oxygen supplied to your brain, well, you're going out. Lights out.
It's like a human vice clamping down on your neck, essentially.
Exactly.
No wonder it's a favorite among BJJ practitioners. But we're not here to talk about just any triangle choke, right? We're diving specifically into Craig Jones's kind of unique approach. What makes his triangles stand out, would you say?
I think it's control. Absolute, methodical control. He doesn't just apply the triangle, right? He strategically sets it up. He's using his opponent's weight, their momentum against them, isolates limbs, breaks their posture, and then bam, when they're most vulnerable, triangle locked in. It's like watching a predator stalk its prey. Just patient, waiting for the right moment.
So it's about setting traps, almost. Like he's anticipating their every move.
Precisely. Yeah, and it's fascinating to see how he adapts, right? Based on his opponent, he might use a slow grinding approach from the closed guard, or it might be a lightning fast transition, maybe from an arm drag.
You mentioned the closed guard. For our listeners who might not be familiar with that term, can you paint us a picture of what that looks like?
So picture this. You're on your back, but you've got your opponent in between your legs. You're controlling their posture, limiting their movement. Now, this might seem like a defensive position, right? But Jones uses this to set up some of his most devastating attacks.
So he's not just waiting around in the closed guard. He's actively working to create those opportunities for the triangle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of his go-to setups from the closed guard involves isolating one of the opponent's arms. So he'll trap that arm, sometimes across his body, and effectively that takes away their ability to defend. Imagine, it's like removing a knight from a chessboard. That arm is no longer a threat.
And with that arm out of the equation, he's already one step closer to that triangle setup.
Exactly. And he'll use grips, leverage, he'll use his whole body to kind of break their posture, force their head down towards their chest, and as soon as he creates that angle, boom, he swoops in with his legs, locks in the triangle, and it's game over.
He makes it sound so effortless, when you explain it like that. But
well, that's the mark of a true master, isn't it? Making the complex look simple. But yeah, it's countless hours of drilling, refining, understanding the nuances of leverage and body mechanics.
So it's not just about brute strength. It's about precision and strategy.
Absolutely. And that strategic brilliance, I think, is even more apparent when you see him transition from other positions, like the overhook, into the triangle.
The overhook, right. So that's where he has his arm wrapped around their arm, essentially pinning it to their body, right?
You got it. Now imagine using that control to kind of manipulate your opponent's posture. Almost like you're steering a ship, right? He might push off their hip with his free hand or use his legs to shift their weight, and suddenly they're caught in that danger zone.
And by danger zone, you mean primed for a triangle choke.
Exactly. And because he's already controlled their posture with the overhook, that transition to the triangle is lightning fast. 1 minute they're trying to escape the overhook, the next they're staring at the lights.
It's like he sees the opportunity before it even exists.
Yeah.
But it's not always about starting from a dominant position, is it? I mean, he's been known to use the arm drag, which is kind of a defensive move almost, as a springboard for his triangle.
Now, that's where it gets really interesting, right? Because most people, they try to resist the arm drag, right? They tense up. Jones uses that momentum to his advantage.
So instead of fighting it, he's flowing with it.
Exactly. As his opponent's pulling on his arm, he's already prepped for that triangle. He'll use that pulling force to break their posture, and in a flash, his leg is over their shoulder, triangle's locked, good night. It's a beautiful blend of defense and offense.
It's like he's playing a different game entirely, a game where his opponent's moves are just stepping stones to his ultimate goal,
Oh,
the triangle.
you're catching on. And it's not just these more common positions. He's even been known to hit triangles from open guard positions, like the reverse De La Riva guard, for example.
All right, for those of us who don't speak fluent BJJ, what in the world is a reverse De La Riva guard?
Okay, so imagine this, right? Jones is on the bottom, but he's not just lying there. One leg is wrapped around his opponent's lead leg, almost like a hook. And this gives him leverage, right? It gives him control over their movement.
So even though he's technically on the bottom,
Mm.
he's dictating the terms of engagement here.
Exactly. Exactly. He uses a combination of grips, either on the collar and arm or the wrist and head, and pulls them down, breaks their posture, bam, triangle appears. It's a thing of beauty.
It's amazing how he can take these different positions, these different scenarios, and find a way to weave in that triangle threat. It's always there.
It all comes back to that strategic mindset we talked about. He's not just reacting to his opponent. He's constantly maneuvering them into positions where the triangle becomes almost inevitable.
And that's what we're going to kind of unpack further, right? We've covered a few of his go-to setups, but what about those little details, those subtle nuances that make his triangles so effective? We'll dive even deeper into that right after this.
Yeah, it's like the difference between snapping a twig and like felling a tree with an axe. Anyone can try a basic triangle, right? But Jones, he adds these subtle layers of pressure that make it almost impossible to escape.
So it's about more than just locking in that triangle shape with your legs.
Way more, way more. Think of it like this, right? You've got the basic shape of a triangle, right? But imagine being able to adjust the angles, the pressure points, even using your entire body to create this suffocating force. And that's what Jones does. Take his hip positioning, for example.
All right, break that down for us. How are his hips any different from someone else doing a triangle?
It's all about creating that slice, that cutting angle with your hips. Imagine trying to, cut something with a butter knife, but you're holding it flat against it. Not much is going to happen. But tilt that blade, right? And suddenly you're slicing through. It's the same with the triangle. Jones, he angles his hips almost like he's trying to bring his hip bone to his opponent's shoulder, and this just maximizes the pressure on the neck, on those carotid arteries we talked about.
So it's not just about squeezing with your legs. It's about directing that force in a very, very specific way.
Exactly. And then there's the leg pressure itself. He's not just locking his legs together. He's using them like finely tuned instruments.
I'm picturing like a vice grip, but for necks.
Not a bad analogy. That top leg, the one across the opponent's shoulder, that's key. He drives that knee downwards towards the mat, and it creates this crushing pressure. And that bottom leg, that's the anchor, right? Making sure there is absolutely no space for escape.
But even with a perfectly locked in triangle, couldn't the opponent potentially relieve some of that pressure by like posturing up, like trying to straighten their back?
You're reading my mind. That's a common defense. But Jones is already countering it before they can even think about it. He's relentless about breaking their posture. He'll pull down on their head, almost like he's trying to touch their chin to their chest. It's brutal, but it's effective.
So he's not just thinking about the choke itself. He's thinking about how his opponent's entire body might try to escape.
Exactly. And this is where his grips come into play. He'll control the head either by grabbing the collar, in gi, the back of the head, and no gi, and it makes it virtually impossible for them to posture up. He's removed that escape route before it even opens up.
It's like he's built a cage around them, using his body and his grips to just eliminate any chance of escape.
And speaking of control, we can't forget about the arms, right? He's meticulous about how he positions his own arms and how he traps his opponents.
All right, enlighten us. What's the big deal with arm placement in a triangle?
Well, remember those carotid arteries we talked about, the ones carrying the oxygen to the brain?
Right.
Jones wants to cut those off as efficiently as possible. So he aims to have one of his opponent's arms trapped inside the triangle while the other arm is pinned outside. And this just further restricts blood flow, amplifies the choke.
So it's like tightening a noose almost, using those arms to really cinch everything down.
Precisely. And he doesn't just, set it and forget it. He's constantly making these micro adjustments, subtly shifting his weight, squeezing a little tighter here, pulling a little harder there. It's this constant pressure, this relentless pursuit of the perfect choke that makes him so deadly.
He's like a boa constrictor, just slowly squeezing the life out of you.
That's chuckles.
Right.
That's one way to put it. That's one way to put it. But in all seriousness, it's that constant adaptation, that unwillingness to settle for good enough that really sets him apart. He's always looking for ways to make the choke tighter, to find that point of no return for his opponent.
So even when he's in a seemingly dominant position, he's still working. He's still refining. He's still kind of hunting for that finish.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But let's talk about his opponents for a moment. I mean, they're not just lying there hoping for the best, right? What are some of the common defenses that people try against the triangle, and how does Jones counter them? Well, they're trying to wiggle out of this human pretzel he's created, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one common defense is called stacking. So imagine you're caught in the triangle, right? So you try to stack your weight on top of the person who's applying it, and that can create a little bit of space, relieve some of the pressure. It's like trying to break free from a hug by just, leaning all your weight on the other person.
So you're basically trying to collapse the triangle by collapsing yourself on top of them.
Exactly. And it's a valid strategy, but of course Jones, being Jones, he's got a counter for that too. He'll often use his arm to hook their leg, kind of prevent them from driving forward and releasing that pressure. It's like he's built this human fortress around them, anticipating every escape route.
It's incredible how he seems to be like steps ahead of his opponent. It's almost like he's reading their minds. But we've talked about the setups, we've talked about the details, the defenses, the counters, and it's clear that Jones's mastery of the triangle choke. It's about so much more than just knowing the move. It's about understanding the strategy behind it, the body mechanics, almost like the psychology of the game. What does this all mean for someone listening to this? Maybe they're a BJJ enthusiast. Maybe they're just fascinated by this level of strategic thinking. What can we take away from Craig Jones and his approach to not just BJJ, but maybe even life?
I think what's so fascinating about studying someone like Jones is that it transcends the sport itself in a way. Whether you're a seasoned black belt or you've never even stepped foot on a mat, the principles that he embodies, they're applicable to so many areas of life, right? Yeah. He teaches us the importance of control, of precision, of always seeking those small advantages that can lead to big wins.
It's about having a system, a process,
yeah.
and constantly refining it.
Exactly. It's about understanding that true mastery comes from sweating the details, from anticipating your opponent's moves and always being ready to adapt. Jones, he doesn't just rely on his athleticism or natural talent, right? He's constantly studying, drilling, finding ways to evolve his game.
It's like that old saying, the more I practice, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
But in Jones's case, it's not luck. It's that preparation meeting opportunity.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. And that's a powerful lesson no matter what your field of interest is, whether you're trying to master a skill or achieve a goal or just navigate the complexities of life. Having that strategic mindset, that relentless pursuit of improvement, that's what sets you apart.
It's about playing chess, not checkers, in every aspect of your life.
Exactly. And that's why I think, Craig Jones's approach to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and particularly his mastery of the triangle choke, it's so captivating, right? Because it's a masterclass in strategy and technique and in the pursuit of excellence.
Absolutely. Well, for our listeners out there, hopefully your brain is buzzing with all these triangle choke intricacy, maybe even inspired to try out a few moves of your own. A huge thank you to our expert for this incredible breakdown It's been an eye-opening journey into the mind of a true BJJ mastermind.
It was my pleasure. Always a joy to share my passion for jiu-jitsu.
And to our listeners, as always, keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.